what do you learn in USA? What does their history books say about these atrocities? Do they even mention it? Like, who was the most killed? Who was the worst in World War II, and so on?
So I'm going to be honest with you, absolutely nothing. Like, we don't even talk about own horrific atrocities that happen in the United States. So I remember I told you, like, one of my initial things that I wanted to speak about, and it's a topic that I'm still trying to develop, is the history of slavery in the United States. Plantations in the American South were a form of concentration camps. African slaves were taken in there. They were breeded to like the strongest with the strongest. The children were sold. They were mutilated in horrific ways. We don't even talk about that. I remember learning, like, in all of my history classes, you have to be a curious person to kind of be able to like find these things. So in American history books, you will find, I remember the curriculum in all of my classes, one page dedicated to slavery. This is a very important thing that happened in there.
Mene niko nikad nije pozvao.
Ali neki ljudi koji se deklarišu, navodno hrišćanima.
Sada slušajte mene.
U takvom vremenu da je bukvalno rat na planeti Zemlji.
Dobrodošli u Dijalog podcast. So, Aron, thanks for coming in Dialog podcast. I'm glad that you're for the first time here. Even snow fell when you came.
A little bit of it, yeah.
So, with the heritage in Venezuela and South America, but now living in Philadelphia, you're like the main defendant of the Serbs on TikTok, and I'm really glad to speak with you because not that you're like defending someone being biased, but really on some facts. And your TikTok was banned. You had 170,000 followers.
That's correct.
And I'm really glad that you're now here because you're persistent. They ban you and then you come to Serbia. And this is the innate thing that is like running your blood. So thank you for coming once again. And let's start with like one easy question. You can introduce yourself a little bit and tell us what brings you to Serbian history and Serbian people.
First of all, dude, I want to thank you for like the invitation, and I want to thank all the Serbian people for like the welcoming, like the hospitality has been great and it has been amazing. Like you mentioned before, you said that that I'm a defendant of the Serbs and all of that. Like, what I would say is like I'm a defendant of like the truth, and a lot of the historical things that I've spoken about are things that are out in the open. Anyone can read anything like this. I'm not participating in any form of propaganda, so I would just say literally I am just a defender of what's the truth and the facts, and this fact speaks for itself. One of the main things that brought me to Serbia specifically, I made that decision. I started planning it like to move to Serbia back in July. I have a sticky note on my in my room. This is I put this sticky note 8 days before I got banned because my main account got banned in July 27th. I put on July 19th. I have a sticky note that said moving to Serbia. Plan to move to Serbia starts July 19th. 8 days later, my account was banned. That messed up my head a little bit. But once I came back, I made the decision to be like, oh, when I'm going to start this new page, I want to like, I'm really going to push this forward and try to like make it as soon as possible. So
yeah, so you're coming from like a finance sector, but
yeah.
You're really, in a certain way, historian. And people are like really tricky about you. They say you are paid by some state agencies. So what would you tell to those people? That because for some people it's unbelievable that you are independent, like journalist and historian.
Yeah, the only thing I would say to those people, and I literally always say that, it's like a lot of that is projection. A lot of that is not, they're saying that I'm doing that, but unfortunately, when I started talking about Serbian history, specifically like World War II, which is how I discover a lot of like the historical facts about your country, there's a lot of propaganda. And unfortunately, the propaganda that runs through here has manipulated people to do like horrific ways and view others not as human beings. So a lot of that is projection, to be honest with you, and that never affects me. Like people call me, they pay me and this and that. I literally laugh because no one pays me. Not even like I always say this. I'm like, the only person paying me is TikTok, so you can ask them what I'm doing. You know?
Yes, but how are the Serbs portrayed in a World War II? Like how are the mainstream media or the books saying about us?
To be honest with you, man, like I didn't know anything about the persecution of Serbs during World War II until I started talking about this like really sensitive topic. And it goes back to when I created my TikTok account. I made a list of different topics that I wanted to talk about. I wanted to start with World War II. Eventually, I wanted to talk about like American slavery because we don't talk enough about that even in the United States, and that's our own history. So I made a list of concentration camps that I wanted to talk about, and I'm like, I want to learn about this one, and I discovered that there was so many. I didn't even know that. And through that research, I was like, all right, let me pick a few from each country, and then I found out like there was a puppet state called Independent State of Croatia, and when I started reading about Jasenovac, like it blew my mind. It blew my mind because not only I was able to like find documentation about like what happened there, but I was able to find documentation of like the people that perpetuated these crimes, the Ustasha. They literally detail exactly what they wanted to do. So a lot of the propaganda, like a lot of the reasons why I get attacked is I'm using the information that comes from the mouth of a lot of these people. So when I discovered about Jasenovac, it opened up a whole new...
You are using Ustasha side of the information or like Serbian side? From where did you find these facts?
Even like... there's
or
like,
German Nazi, I don't know.
So the Germans had like... I remember when I was reading about Jasenovac, there was like a shocking thing. There was like this German general, it doesn't come to my mind, but he wrote back to Germany. He was like, hey, these Croatians are committing atrocities. Like they're and like what shocked me the most is like this is a German guy, a Nazi, basically saying those things. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And the crimes that were perpetuated in there, like there's a character within the Independent State of Croatia. His name's Mile Burak, and he literally wrote he wrote specifically what they wanted to do to the Serbs. So a third of the population was to be expelled, a third of the population was to be converted, and a third of the population was to be exterminated. They were very explicit about what they wanted to do. So yeah. I'm using their own voices and their own statements and their own documents about that. You know?
Yeah. And what is like the most unbelievable thing about Jasenovac? Because it's not a long time ago. It's like 80, 90 years, let's say 70 years plus now.
Yeah, I think the most shocking thing to me was the brutality that existed in that place. So, for example, the Germans were very methodical. They're like, just like their industries, they created a killing machine, and they perfected in a way, in the most horrible way, that machine. The Ustasha and the Croatians didn't really have those methods. They were more brutal because they did not have those methods. So, for example, there was like over 50 different ways that they literally torture Serbs, Roma, and Jews in there in the most brutal ways. So the thing that shocked me the most was the amounts of people that they were able to kill, but the way that they were able to do it, like I remember I made a video about like this specific tool that they use.
Srbosjek, yes. A Serb cutter or something like that.
Even the name of that tool was disgusting to even kind of think about. So that was the brutality is really what shocked me, and then the way that they exterminated people.
Yeah, it was not like a systematical extermination, but like experimentation in killing and like enjoying in killing. But what do you think is the root of that kind of evil? What do you think what happened? Because you mentioned Mile Budak, yeah, but he has like a lot of Ustasha has like a Serbian heritage,
Yeah.
So it's crazy because they were their grandfathers used to be Serbs and something. So this is like a conversion of those people, from that side. If you look at it, so what do you think? What happened? What is the main cause of this to happen in that like horrendous way?
Unfortunately, I do have to mention this, that like and it goes back to the previous question, and I'll just segment into this one. The Catholic Church did play a really like negative role and a horrific role in this Holocaust, in a way that you want to call it, and some of these priests were willing participants of this. So what makes a so-called man of God like commit such atrocities and justify them at such a scale at every level of society? I think that, and this is a lot of the things that I do get in the comments, a lot of people mention specific atrocities that may have happened in the past, and they blame Serbs. The conversion, and I don't know enough about this, but for example, Miroslav Filipovic, I think it was like a Bosnian Croatian priest. There was another character. It doesn't come to my mind. It was Stepinac. But some of these, like, they have surnames that are like Serbian. So yes. A lot of, like, obviously the Catholic Church and look, religion plays a spiritual role in people, but as we all know, it does play a political role too. So in a way, the Catholic Church and the Serbian Orthodox, or even Orthodox Church, played, they were kind of rivals in a way. Conversions of people forced conversions of people were things that were done to, in a way, remove the influence that each church had, in a way.
Yeah, the Orthodox Church.
Yeah, so Stepinac, for example, like, this is a really horrific character. I know he's like almost a saint in Croatia, but the way that they kind of like justify the conversions is like, oh, he's saving people and all of that. That's a forced conversion is a form of genocide. When you're trying to erase like people's history, you can kill them physically, but you have to destroy them historically too. They didn't exist.
Yes. But what do you learn in USA? Like, what does their history books say about these atrocities? Do they even mention it? Like, who was the most killed? Who was the worst in World War II, and so on?
So I'm going to be honest with you, absolutely nothing. Like, we don't even talk about own horrific atrocities that happen in the United States. So I remember I told you, like, one of my initial things that I wanted to speak about, and it's a topic that I'm still trying to develop, is the history of slavery in the United States. Plantations in the American South were a form of concentration camps. African slaves were taken in there. They were breeded to like the strongest with the strongest. The children were sold. They were mutilated in horrific ways. We don't even talk about that. I remember learning, like, in all of my history classes, you have to be a curious person to kind of be able to like find these things. So in American history books, you will find, I remember the curriculum in all of my classes, one page dedicated to slavery. This is a very important thing that happened in there. So if we don't even
in USA, you learn one page
in
about
one page, like, and you can talk.
This is like a high school, right?
This is high school, middle school. Like, I learned more about what the Nazis did than what happened in during slavery in America. And I'm laughing because the hypocrisy of it, Yes. So yeah, Jasenovac was not something that we even talked about, and they kind of like overview things. The American curriculum, when it comes to history, it's bad, and it's a shame, because this is I'm a U.S. citizen and all of that, like, and it's a country that I do love, and if you love your country, in a way, you have to criticize it. So
you have to be objective.
You have to be objective, of course,
and to learn from these mistakes.
Exactly.
But how did you manage to find some information? Most people like read one page about slavery or whatever about Second World War, and they don't try to find more about it. Just accept it as it is. Why didn't you accept that perspective, let's say, that you learned in USA?
Yeah, so I always kind of like use this this analogy, like a yarn, like a ball, and there's like a little string. I'm a curious person, so I just started pulling and pulling and pulling, and you have to, like, and this is not even talking about myself, but even when it comes to children, like a key aspect of intelligence is somewhat, you have to be curious. Curiosity is a key ingredient to a lot of that. Yes. So for you to be able to discover these things, you have to be curious, and it comes from yourself. It doesn't come from anybody else.
So you're like basically a finance guy, and you started just reading, checking blogs, videos.
So this is the thing. I always loved history. So since I was a kid, and so just to kind of give you an example, even why I started doing TikTok videos, I'm a reader. I love to read. I come from a family of readers. My dad is an intellectual. He loves to read. He's the one that gave me my first book. So in my way, like every time that I read a new book and I learn something new, I like to share it with my friends. I share it with my family. I share it with friends. So when I started doing TikTok videos, this is kind of like a way of being able to like share what I learned with other people, strangers in a way, you know, and in a way to educate. Education is a very important tool. So some people don't like to read. Some people learn in different ways, and that's okay. So I saw TikTok not just as an app to just dance and stuff like that. I saw it as a tool that you can use to educate people in a way.
Yeah. But again, you have to find some of the books, right?
Of course.
You have to read like someone. So what were the first book that you read about, I don't know, Serbian people or World War II or slavery, whatever? You can say some authors if you want, or the name of the books.
So I'll talk about like when I started reading about Jasenovac, I found different websites, but I found this book. I can't tell you the author's name, but the book's name is Auschwitz of the Balkans, and it goes into detail about what happened in Jasenovac. It's horrific, and in there it gives you a lot of details. This book is like this big. I haven't even finished reading it. It's like a huge book. But it's a very powerful testament to what happened in the horrible.
This was done by Gideon Greif.
Yeah.
I just have to back check it, because it's maybe translated different. He's like a Jewish guy who like took all these atrocities because none of the Serbian historians weren't able under Tito and the Communist Party to even allow to explore about these things. So because of this Jewish guy, we knew more, and he documented almost everything as he could. Yeah. But in Serbia, for example, this type of book is really expensive. It's like $100 or $200, and not a lot of people, have that kind of money or want to spend that kind of money to learn more about it. And the people who even read it were like, you cannot read it. It's too hardcore for you. It's like a horror movie.
But you think about that's actually kind of like a problem too. Like knowledge shouldn't be something that should be accessible to people that have money. It should be something that should be accessible to everybody. Yes. Horrific details, but if you don't learn those things do repeat. Like there's a cliche, like history repeats itself. Yeah, it repeats itself because we don't learn the lessons of the past. And for you to be able to not repeat the thing, you have to have educational programs, and you have to be able to have some sort of justice, not only for the criminals that perpetuated like these crimes, but also for like in an intellectual way of teaching people like what happened,
Yeah, and you're living currently in USA.
Yeah.
And how are the Serbs, from the part that you know and that you remember, are like portrayed in US media?
I mean, in different movies, like as war criminals, as during the 90s, and I moved to the United States in 1999, but during the 90s, when Yugoslavia was splitting and you had the different conflicts that happening here, war is fought in two planes. So you fight them with guns, ammunition, and weapons, and then you have to fight them in propaganda. You guys, unfortunately, fell on the short end of the stick when it came to the propaganda war. So you needed to create a reason. Like every time the United States goes into war with another country, it needs to prepare the population in the country for war. And the way it does it, like the same way it happened in Iraq, the same way it happened with the bombing in 1999 in here, you need to create the enemy in the minds of the American people so that they can support it. And unfortunately, that's the last propaganda aspect of the war in the 90s stuck. Like the last thing that we know about the Serbs in terms of like what happened, literally, I remember I told a few of my friends that I was coming over here. They're like, "Oh, isn't that crazy over there? Like these people committed crimes. Like what's going on?" You know, and it's ignorance. Sometimes it's not malicious ignorance. It's just ignorance because of what they suffer. Like we live in the belly of the beast. We're experts at propaganda, and propaganda is not only projected to the outside; it's projected inside too. To the population. So
so basically we are the worst. It's crazy because at the Time magazine, just before the Second World War, we were like the heroes. You know, the Draža Mihailović, the Chetniks. They even made movies in Hollywood about the Serbs, you know, like the rebels against the Nazi system and so on. And it's crazy that now, like, we are the biggest enemies of the, let's say, allies. And I'm just trying to ask you, so you can give the perspective or how are people portrayed here. But since you came here, what is your like first impression about Serbian people and Serbia?
The hospitality has been insane. Like, to be honest with you, like this trip, like I planned it like kind of like in 4 days. And the experience has been amazing. I was telling one of my brothers, I have 5 brothers. I was telling them, I was like, it's rare for you to say, hey, I want to visit a country. And then because of the things that I do on TikTok, I was able to, like, one of the guys that connected me with the apartment I'm staying at. Like, for example, there were so many things that I was kind of like ignorant about. I've never been to Europe. I didn't even know that there was like a different connection in there. This guy gave me a SIM card, gave me the charger, got me the apartment, picked me up from the airport. But that's not just him. He has transmitted in through all the people that I have gotten to meet.
This is a guy you don't know, basically, or
not only through TikTok. Like we have talked, and his name is Raleigh. But like he was an amazing guy. He connected me with everything that I needed in here. And the thing is, I have explored a lot on my own too, and I have experienced like the hospitality even from like strangers that don't even speak the language. Sometimes I went to go buy a flower like at a flower shop, and I was like, right into the lady. I was like, oh, I need this, I need that. And then the lady's like, yeah. And then she was like, and we were like chatting with each other for like 5 minutes. She was amazing. She was like, God bless you. Hope you have a good day. Enjoy your time here. Where you from? Blah, blah, blah. We're talking like that. And the hospitality just has been amazing. So my first experience of that is what I got. Another thing is, like, I guess in the physical aspect, I made a video about it. I was naive how tall you guys are, man. I actually like feel really small here. So it was one of those things that like everywhere I went, even on their airplane, there was this young lady that was sitting in front of me. I was like, this lady was a tower, man. Like, it's insane. So, but it has been pleasant, to be honest with you.
And the culture, the food, so.
Okay, so the food, the food,
music, I don't know.
Oh my God, yeah. So the one thing too. I'm a little embarrassed to kind of like say this, but every time that I go out to eat and stuff like that, and when I go eat with Serbs, and I always tell them like, hey, pick for me. I don't have no dietary restrictions. I just want to like try different things. So order what you think I should eat. Man, you guys eat so much meat, and all the restaurants I've been to, the portions are very big, and I'm always embarrassed because like I'm talking and I'm having some drinks and stuff. I'm like, the person devours everything that's in front of them, and then I can't eat everything, so I always have to take it home. I have like 5 different plates at my house right now, like, and I'm like, this morning I'm like, I have so much food, I have to reheat it, so I have to kind of
it for like 2 days more.
Yeah, man. I'm like, I can't deal with it, you know. But the food has been amazing. I love everything about it. I told my dad if he came here, he's gonna have a heart attack. He suffered from high blood pressure. He loves me, so I have to be careful when they do come to visit one day.
So, but when you look now at let's say South America and let's say Latin people and Serbs, do you see some like similarities, connections about the character of?
100%. The hospitality aspect of it, it's the same. The family aspect, like you guys are very connected to your family. And the beautiful thing about it too is that everyone that you meet here tells you about their family, tells you about like their history, where they come from. That's a very Venezuelan thing. You go to a Venezuelan household, they're gonna open, especially when it comes to like foreigners, people that are coming to visit. They find out you're coming to visit from the United States. You're coming to visit from whatever place. People welcome you, they feed you, and then they tell you the history of their family. And that's one similarity that I've seen here. Everyone tells me about their family, their children, like what they do, like, and it's beautiful, you know. And it's something that when I moved to the United States, I love America. I love the people in there too. But American society can be a little cold sometimes, you know, and it's not the same when it comes to that. So,
but what it's like in USA currently, because you know you have next year elections. There's a lot of tension. America is currently portrayed as the big evil, let's say, in Eastern media, and also in some part of Balkans, people like I checked some like coverage about how many Americans are proud about being American, and they tracked this like percentage, like 20-30 years ago was like 70%, and now it's like 38%. So people in America seem like they're not anymore proud about saying like, hey, I'm from USA and so on.
I mean, like American society right now is like very divided, and unfortunately after the 2016 election, the divisions kind of like grew even more. It is very hard to be proud when you live in a society that's one of the richest countries in the history of the world, and 56 to 60% of your population live paycheck to paycheck. You can have a home, you can have a job. Your mother gets cancer, you're selling your home, you're gonna go homeless to be able to like pay for the treatment of that. Like, what kind of society kind of like forgets about its people? So this is what I mean. It's not the society, it's not the people, it is the corrupt government that we do have. And in the United States, unfortunately, corruption is legalized. We have a lobbying system that if you have money, you're able to buy politicians to then push the agenda that you want. And in a way, like, for example, someone like Donald Trump, like when he got elected, like he was part of the system. He was a person that used to buy politicians. I remember I was laughing during his first debate. People were like criticizing him, like his other contenders are criticizing him and stuff like that. And he's like, be quiet. Like, I bought you. I paid for your last election. Like, shut up. Like, what are you talking about? And so this is a billionaire that bought himself into the ticket to be able to like run for president. And what did that do? There's a bunch of like, you know, the United States media likes to talk about like Russian oligarchs. We have oligarchs in the United States, and they control media. They control like the sectors of our economy, the most powerful sectors of our economy. And Donald Trump kind of created a thing where all these big oligarchs in America want to buy into the system. Like right now there's Mark Cuban. He's kind of like talking about like maybe running for president. In my opinion, I don't think that's a good thing. I don't think a society should be run by multi-billionaires that have nothing to do with what the common people want, you know? And unfortunately, if you're able to buy media, you're able to convince people. That's just the reality of the situation. Yeah. So for you to be able to participate in the political system, you have to have a lot of money. So, you know?
And you say the people are divided, but what about the media? How do you see or portray the media? It was like a big news when Tucker Carlson from Fox News like left the let's say mainstream media. Do American people still believe the mainstream media?
Oh no, so this is the thing, and it's very similar to the ecosystem that you guys are kind of creating here. Corporate media, especially after, like, for example, people used to have a better opinion of like American media, even through the propaganda that it portrays before the election. So, for example, and this is not even to praise Trump because I don't even like him, but like one of the things he used to when he started calling out the news fake news and saying, he was calling out like a reality, like they're lying. So, for example, look at YouTube. and the ecosystem of the different media alternative media platforms are kind of like blowing up. There is a YouTube channel that I watch a lot, Breaking Point. It's like these two, Crystal Ball and Sagar. It's this conservative guy and this kind of more progressive lady, but they speak it in a more objective way. They don't have sponsors paying for coverage, because remember, the American media works this way. You're not gonna see CNN or Fox News anchor like saying like, you know, the pharmaceutical company is it's one of the biggest lobby, because it is. It was one of the biggest lobbying groups in the United States buying politicians. You will never see that, because as soon as the segment ends, there is a commercial for a drug. You know what I'm saying? So how are you going to be able to
say something about them?
It's completely biased. So the media is owned by a conglomerate that has
private corporations.
Private corporations. Nothing fair or balanced is going to come out of something like that. And if you get out of line, you get kicked out, kind of like Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, but how do you portray like currently your President Biden? Like, does the media do a coverage of him like tripping on the stairs, like mumbling, you know? Because we see a lot of that in Europe here, especially in Balkans, because we don't like Biden here.
Yeah, it depends on the media that you're watching. So if you're gonna like a lot of these,
I mean, do American people realize that he's like in a dimension or something? You know,
I was gonna mention that, like, and this is a messed up thing. Yes, of course, and even on the like, even the people that voted for him are completely disappointed. This is somebody that, like how you say it, and I don't want, and this is not even to like make fun of somebody. Like, we should feel sorry for him.
Yeah,
this
he's
is
an old guy.
Man
yes.
That's like being kind of like handled in
like
different ways. In a puppet. Like, so think about it. Like, the people that surround power, those are the real power. Like, it's not even like Joe Biden. So this is somebody that, like, if you were to go to a supermarket and you see an 85-year-old person like being the cashier, you will feel sad for them. That's sad. Yes. So honestly, that's what I do feel for him too. And the American people understand that, but also too, like the corporate media. Like, I was watching a segment a day ago. They were interviewing this Democratic political strategist, and then Jake Tapper in CNN, he was like, why don't you guys get another guy? And she was like, what do you mean another guy? This is the only person, this is the agenda. I'm like, they're forcing someone into they're forcing this person to run for president.
Yeah, because when you look like Obama, who is also the Democrat on the left, and you look Biden, it's like totally two different, you know, ideologies, let's say. Yeah. But when it comes to like election and the division, do you think that the deep state also controls some part of the Donald Trump and the Republicans? Because why I ask you, all the Serbs in USA vote Republicans, you know, like most of them.
Both political parties are corrupt. Like, you can literally, this is the only good thing about American politics. You can literally see the list of donors that each of those, and then you can see how they vote. So the Republican Party is extremely corrupt, just as much as the Democrats. The Republican Party is a bigger sponsor of like big business. Look how they vote. Like, for example, most Americans, if you poll them and you ask them, like, do you believe we should have universal health care, for example, 60-70%, this is one of the most popular things. In a way, certain Democrat candidates, they say, yeah, that's we should vote for, we should do that. The Republican Party unanimously do not believe that. Why? Just look at who's paying a lot of their campaigns. The pharmaceutical company is an enemy of universal health care. The insurance system the private insurance system in the United States is an enemy of universal health care. And who do they fund? They fund both political parties, but the Republicans, without an exception, always vote with corporate interests. And then they play the game. We have something in the United States called the culture wars. Yeah. They talk about stuff that will get people to fight each other, but doesn't really affect their actual economic situation.
Yes.
So
it's basically a circus for
it's a
the
circus.
people.
It's a circus.
Yeah. So people should reconsider this before voting.
I mean, but that's the thing. Like
you're just like choosing less evil. Let's say.
But exactly, and it's a political trap. Every system that has a two-party system, it's going to be corrupt. They're forcing you into those two things that the majority of people don't vote. And then the media tells you that it's impossible to view something different, you know? And when you create that image of saying like, hey, nothing can change because this is what we have.
But when you see people here, they think a lot of, let's say, younger people that bought into it think that in Serbia it's not good for living. They also want to come to USA to live this American dream. Does the American dream still exist?
I mean, I don't even know if he ever existed, but this is one thing I will say about it. Like, and I have told a few friends, like, unfortunately, there are a lot of opportunities in the United States. Sure, there are. Especially like as an immigrant, like we moved to the United States in 1999. I was a kid. I was 11 years old. My parents brought us for like better opportunities. My dad's a professor in Venezuela. Like he didn't even have a job. Like we had to get out of there. And my mom was a teacher. Complete like professionals, but they didn't have opportunities. So and they wanted to get their kids out of there. Yes, we did much better. I'm always going to appreciate the United States for those opportunities. But unfortunately, the United States, it's kind of like a sinking ship. And people that do want to move to the United States have to think what they're going to be doing. Even when 56 to 60% of the population is again, I reiterate that, like living paycheck to paycheck, 50% of your salary is going into rent, and then one emergency away from completely going bankrupt. I don't know what like some people say like, yeah, the American dream because people are asleep. That's why it's like you're sleeping.
It's like an illusion.
It's an illusion in a way. Yeah.
But let's get a little bit more on the America, and then we will switch back to Serbia and the world news. What do you think about the religious system in USA? Because America is mostly Protestant. Your father is a Protestant, or preacher?
He was,
Teacher or preacher?
No, he was a preacher. He was before,
Okay,
about 10 years ago.
And what I see when I look at the universities, they are like the more dominant are becoming these Catholic ones, like Clinton, like even Trump was like in Jesuit or school, Biden. Do you think that, let's say, the Vatican again is like taking over the America?
So, I mean, I wouldn't even say that. So, like, religion, like, if you go to the United States, like, people say, yeah, I'm this, I'm that, but, like, they're not religious. Like, if anything, there's a decadence in society. Like, people are getting away from, I guess, what you will say, the roots of their religion and whatnot. But I'll give you an example. Even, like, one of the most powerful groups in the United States are Christian fundamentalists. But that's not necessarily a really good thing, you know, because they support like things that are not good in a lot of ways.
For example?
So I'll give you an example. A lot of like the wars in the Middle East, like uniformly they support it. Like one of the biggest lobbying groups in the United States is the Southern Christian churches in America. And I lived in the South, in the United States in the South. Think about like what Christianity says about like welcoming people from lands that are destroyed, refugees, and all of that.
Yes.
None of that applies because these are some of the biggest enemies of like immigration in the United States. They supported a lot of the policies. Like, for example, like some of the biggest supporters of Donald Trump were this Christian fundamentalists. And this is a sensitive topic for me because I am an immigrant in the United States and I am not somebody like anyone that goes against promotes the separation of families, for example. And I have to kind of like mention the two sides because, yes, I was an enemy of like what Trump did when it comes to the immigrants. Like I knew families personally that were completely separated. They took the men out of the house just for like driving without a license. They took them, they deported them back to Mexico. And then you leave a mother with 3 children. And then the mother's the only one that's going to be able to like take care. And these are not criminals. These are not people that are doing anything wrong. So and then you deport them back. But Obama was the president that deported the most people, but he did it with a smile, you know, and he did it with a nice. He's a nice guy, right? All of that.
Good
so you have to kind of like be. I'm objective when it comes to those things. You know what I'm saying? So American society has lost a little bit of its. I guess the religious aspect, like I don't think people are that religious in the United States. And one of the fastest growing religions in the United States is Islam.
Yeah, so also in Europe.
Okay, yeah,
so
I think worldwide,
I think
worldwide.
Yes,
so,
yes.
And then I just have to mention this one last thing, and this is in the United States, obviously, like it's a capitalist system in a way, you know. There is a segment of Protestant Christianity called like prosperity gospel. The prosperity gospel Christians, my dad was a very critical person of this, and I'm a critical person of this kind of like gospel, but it's very popular in the United States. It's pastors that are mega rich. They have airplanes. They have this, like most of the people in their flock, in their churches are poor, they're giving that money away, and they preach a gospel, and I call it like a capitalist gospel, where they're like, hey, God blesses you if you got money. If you don't got money, you're doing something wrong.
You think about Kenneth Copeland?
That's one of them. That's definitely one of them. I mean, he's playing.
He has a private jets and so on.
Private jets, and he prays for God to give him those.
Yeah.
God's not giving him that.
So this is like the popular, like
very popular, and then you'll see a pastor, you know, with a $10,000 suit. Like the people in his crowd are living paycheck to paycheck. It's really sick, in my opinion.
Yeah, and what do you think about the current education system in America? Like, there's a lot of let's say LGBT propaganda. Like kids are really like freaked out. There's a mass school shooting every 2-3 days. I don't know. So it used to be like American school system is the best, you know, Harvard and all the universities, Stanford and so on, MIT and so on. But when you look like on average, like the situation doesn't look so good.
So yeah, the educational system in the United States is deteriorating, and I am a believer. Like because I have friends in the LGBTQ community. I live in Philadelphia. Philadelphia is it has a huge gay community. For example, like one of my managers at the bank, it's a gay man and all of that, and I respect him. Like he's a beautiful human being and all of that. And as long I don't need to know what you do in the bedroom or anything like that, because I really don't care. You know, like when we talk to each other, I don't tell you I'm not asking you what you're doing with your wife or anything like that. But I do believe that when it comes to education, especially like sexual education and like or education about family values, like that starts at home. Like the first teacher that you have is going to be your mother and your father. And I do think that I don't think the school system should play a role in like what children should be being taught. Like if I don't want my child to learn about certain aspects of sexuality, I don't think a teacher has the right to do that. There are things that I'm completely against. There was like a thing that was happening in California where they had drag queens that like will go read books, and then the kids will throw money at them like a stripper. Like it's like 7-year-olds. Like that's not, in my personal opinion, that's completely wrong, and I don't think that has a place in a child setting, unless the parents, if they want to. Again, it goes back. In my personal opinion, it does go back to the parents having that responsibility and not some institution.
Yeah, but I saw like there's a pressure on association of pediatrics and doctors. Like when the kid is born, like you shouldn't give him like a sex. It should be like gender neutral. And then the kids should see what it will be like, and that is something they're also pushing.
So I do have a strong opinion when it comes to this specific aspect of it. There's like parents that are giving their kids like hormone blockers and stuff like that. It's like a form, in my personal opinion, like you're hindering the development of this child. And we were all children at one point. I don't think we know. Sometimes we don't even know what we kind of like want. And I do think like the main thing that like parents should obviously like do. I don't have children yet, but like love is the main important weapon. Like your child is your child. You should give them love. But I don't think drugs and pumping them in. I think any doctor that kind of like promotes that is kind of promoting some sort of like abuse, and that should be investigated. I know like in certain European countries that's illegal. Yeah. Unfortunately, in the United States, we don't have that.
And because you're in Philadelphia, is it true that Kensington Street is like full of zombies, drug zombies? Because some people don't believe it, you know. So
I'm gonna say this, and I you can call them that, but I don't like to call, because like when you go there, man, you actually like want to cry. Like I personally, I will not call them zombies. Like it's human misery. Like you want to see human misery. And over the day, like just stuttering and like moving around. I'll give you an example. Like you go to Kensington and you're walking in there, you're seeing what you see in the videos. That's real. Normal. That's so normal. Like before I came here, I was on the train. There was a young lady, very beautiful young lady. Like she had a needle hanging, and she's like on the train, kind of like slouch, and the needle's hanging in there. People are passing by, and like you're like, what are you gonna do? No one is helping. So in Kensington, you literally will see between this whole mess, you see families taking their kids to school. You're seeing people going to church, people going to work. This is all happening. The majority of people in that neighborhood are good people, hardworking, and all of that. Unfortunately, that's like one of the largest open air markets of heroin in the United States. You literally will see this out in the open. You'll see drug dealers, right? And there's different factions of them. And you'll see a line of people. They get free samples. Because every time they get a new product, they give them free samples. You see people grabbing it and going and going. I was talking, one of my friends used to be addicted to heroin, and he literally used to tell me this. He was like, when someone had an overdose in there, when someone was overdosing, instead of like other addicts, instead of like going to go help, the first thing that will look is like in the pockets to see what heroin he got. Because remember, like when you're shooting yourself to death, like you're becoming more tolerant. So the strongest one, the one that gives you the overdose, that's the one that people want. Think about that, Yeah, crazy. It is. And let's overlook one more thing about the perspective from USA. Like, what do people say about current conflict in Ukraine and Russia? How do they portray Zelensky and Putin? Is everything like one-sided or not? So, oh my God, like at the very beginning, and this is what you see, like we say in the United States that we're an open society, like freedom of speech and all of that. If you were a journalist and you question the narrative about the Ukraine war, you will be fired. You could even lose your job. So, but over the years, because remember I told you about America, it's kind of like a sinking ship. Student debt is the number one debt in the United States. Credit card debt is the second one. People are living paycheck to paycheck. Crumbling infrastructure. We haven't invested in our infrastructure like in a long time. And you can see it in the trains and the roads. And then we're sending like $40 billion, within a year, we send $40 billion to Ukraine. To literally, and this is, I do feel bad for the people, the civilians in Ukraine, because the United States is playing a very dirty game of pushing a whole generation of men and now women too that are being drafted to go fight Russia for the benefit of some sick game of keeping the Russians at bay. Again, I empathize with the Ukrainian civilians. It's horrific. Like some of my clients in Philadelphia are Ukrainian people. Some of them were professionals. They had lives. They didn't want to leave their country, and it's horrific. And if I was a young man in there, I would leave. So in the United States, there is a negative, like over the year, like as the war progressed and the propaganda was falling on its face, like people have had a negative perception of it. I remember Zelensky went to Congress to ask, and he came dressing up like, you know, some sort of fatigues. And I remember like Tucker Carlson, like I don't really watch Fox News, but I always kind of like, I like to pay attention to certain characters in media. And like, I remember he mentioned something. He was like, he called Zelensky, like, look at this guy. He just comes to our Congress looking like the manager of a strip club over here asking for money. And like, what about our people? You know what I'm saying? He's actually right. You know? Yeah. So now who's the new popular thing, the new trending thing? Yeah, like we're sending a ton of money right now to Israel. We're propping up a really horrific situation.
Could you comment on that? Like, I believe that Israel is like looking the best in, or portrayed the best in U.S. media.
100%. And one of the main reasons for that is, and you can look this up, one of the most powerful lobbying groups in the United States is called AIPAC, American Israeli Affairs Committee. You can look this up, and they're not ashamed about it either. The number one politician that they gave money in the last election cycle was Joe Biden. They gave him $6 million. They fund they lobby. They're the main lobbying group for sanctions in Iran. They're the main lobbying. The reason Israel gets almost $5 billion a year for their defense, which I call it a fund for committing war crimes against the Palestinian people, is because of this lobbying group. These things are not like the political. When you see American politicians promoting certain things, foreign wars and all of that, this is not out of the goodness of their heart. You have to look behind and you have to see who they fund. The AIPAC political lobbying group is one of the most powerful ones because they're bipartisan. Without a doubt, there's probably like 2-3 politicians in the House and in the Senate that are against any fund of Israel. But look at who funds a lot of these politicians. And this lobbying group is very smart, and you kind of like have to admire in a way how they were able to like buy politicians in such crazy ways from both political parties, where supporting Israel is almost like a national security thing, which is kind of insane to me. But over this conflict, a lot of the propaganda has kind of disintegrated. This is coming out more, like how much influence this lobbying group has. And this is one thing I'll mention. In the next election cycle that's happening, they're already pledging $100 million to defeat any candidate that is going against like supporting Israel. Rashid Tlaib, she's a representative in Michigan. And this just came out like 2 days ago. AIPAC, one of the biggest donors of AIPAC, was trying to get a candidate to like, he was like, hey, if you challenge her, we're gonna give you $20 million for your fund. Like that's how blatantly corrupt AIPAC and this foreign aspect of like the Israeli war is, unfortunately. And they played a huge, they're kind of interfering in our political system.
Do you think like this is like a really devil's game? Because I see the rise of anti-Semitism everywhere in the world, and we should not forget like Jesus Christ and the apostles were Jewish, you know. Yeah. And people like now connect the, let's say, Israeli government with like a spiritual aspect of being a Jew. Because in the Bible, when you read a Jewish people or Judean is someone who is by spirit, not someone by the blood and the meat, that's how we say in Serbia, but the one who is on the side of the God. And you can say Zelensky is like Jewish, but in reality he's not, because he's not acting like God's man. So do you think this is like just a preparation for something bigger that will come in years?
So I will say this, and there's like two different things, right? And every time me personally, when I criticize Israel, like I'm criticizing a state.
Yes.
I am not criticizing the Jewish people.
Yes, of
and
course.
There is a
never the people. People are mostly good everywhere.
Exactly. There is a rise of anti-Semitism in the United States. It's very blatant. In 2018, there was a horrific massacre that happened in Pennsylvania. I can't remember the name of it right now, but I believe 18 people died because of a white supremacist went in there and murdered these people. Israel plays a very dirty game. And there's Jewish organizations in the United States that are anti-Zionist. Zionism and Judaism are two different things. Zionism is a political ideology. Judaism is a religion. That has nothing to do. If I criticize the state of Israel, I'm not anti-Semitic. That's like if I criticize a policy of Serbia, that doesn't make me an anti-Serb.
But our Arabs are also Semitic.
Exactly. So we're playing a game over here, which is ridiculous. So I guess we agree, especially like when it comes to that.
Yeah.
So that's what I was trying to get to. Like,
yes.
But this is where people, like if you're going to be in the media or anything like that, especially in the United States, you have to be very careful when you kind of criticize the state of Israel. That's why you have to kind of, if you don't want to get destroyed, you have to kind of stay within certain parameters. And I do criticize the state of Israel. It is a state. They're not special than any other state. Yeah. And it's a country. And if they're committing war crimes, and as we're seeing in the Gaza Strip, they should be called out for it. And they should be stopped in a way, you know?
Yes. I just want to ask you before we go to questions of our guests, who are the most famous Serbian people in America that you know?
Okay.
Or that people knows?
Okay, 100%. And I've seen it in the last year. Jokic, the basketball player, it's so popular. Like it's a household name now. And not even, I'm so embarrassed.
Djokovic, yeah.
Djokovic.
Novak Djokovic.
Yeah, obviously he's popular, but like tennis is not that much. It's a popular sport, but not that popular. Like people talk more about basketball than they will talk about tennis.
Yeah.
So Djokovic is probably one of the most famous, especially now.
Yes.
Oh my God, there's so many memes. There's so many. Like people love him. They really like him. Yeah. Like they like his attitude, like of like I don't care.
I don't care about.
I don't care. Like people, Shaq is like one of his biggest supporters, and I love that about him. And it's funny in the last year. He's a household name. It's just
and he's not looking athletic also.
Yeah.
You know, he's not LeBron and so on.
Yeah. So that's the especially now I would say that's probably one of the most famous.
Yeah, he's like 2 times MVP or something like that. Maybe now the third time he will be. And about what other people like maybe Nikola Tesla, Mihailo Pupin, you know about them?
So I learned about Mihailo Pupin here, and this is kind of like again, it goes back to like the political. I mean the educational system in the United States. Now I'm gonna be honest with you, man, and it's gonna sound ignorant, but I didn't even know Nikola Tesla was a Serb. I really didn't know until like I found out about it, you know? Yeah. That's again, it goes back. Of course I knew who Nikola Tesla is, but it was not something that was it's like they don't teach you that. They don't teach you that.
It's not someone Elon Musk's guy.
No. I knew who he was, but I just didn't know like
what was he about.
Where was he was from or all of that. So it's not
on his funeral, his last song when he died was like Tamo Daleko, which is really like famous national Serbian song. But people love like Nikola Tesla is everyone's hero, you know? So we don't mind if someone from Croatia wants it or someone, you know. just be like correct about the facts, you know. So Pupin was like a professor at I think Columbia University.
Yeah, I think he was like he worked for NASA and stuff. He developed. I think you guys have him on the $1,000 dinar thing. I think I want to say that. I don't know. I think you guys have it on a bill.
George Weifert. Yeah, but and I don't know if you know if you can say something about it, but like the biggest library in Belgrade is like funded by Andrew Carnegie, you know?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and we have a lot of like, let's say American like entrepreneurs like giving money here, and a lot of, let's say, Masonic also, like people are with the Masonic background are here like popular because Serbia was under their influence a lot. On the other side, you have like Jesuits who are like more into Catholic part of the society.
I mean,
so it's like these secret societies are there that much secret in USA.
And like it doesn't, now that you kind of like say the thing about Andrew Carnegie, it doesn't surprise me because a lot of institutions in the United States were funded by him. And you know, United States plays a huge role in the global scene and even in the past. So a lot of these industrialists in the United States, the way that they created a lot of their influence was creating these institutions and funding them in a way. Like you have to fund a civil, like for you to be able to like create a sort of a new society that you want, you have to fund the libraries, you fund the educational institutions and all of that. So that specific aspect of it doesn't surprise me. You mentioned like the Jesuits and stuff like that. Latin America, for example, a lot of these institutions, like a lot of our politicians went to like private schools that were Jesuits and stuff like that. Plays a huge influence in especially like in Latin American society, Central American and Latin American society.
Yeah, because they form your mind in a certain way.
Exactly.
You know, the education system, and they tell you who is the good guy and who is the bad guy.
Exactly.
So Aron, however you want. This is like the first part of our dialogue. Everyone who supports Dialogue podcast on our Patreon and wants to donate can ask the questions of our guests and participate in creating this dialogue and these episodes. So I was really nicely surprised that I got a lot of questions from Serbia about you. So we will now answer some. If you want, you can answer short. If you're not sure about any, we can just skip it. So let's start from the beginning. What are your positive and negative sides about Serb? We have like a famous Swiss journalist, like after the First World War, called Archibald Rice,
yeah,
you know,
I read about him
and he wrote a book like Here the Serbs, you know, and he wrote everything in the first part of the book, like he wrote everything good about the Serbian people, and in the second part of the book he wrote everything we should be cautious about, what is bad about our character. What do you think? Let's say you're an Archibald Rice, like a journalist a little bit, even though you are not here a long time, but I hope you will be here more. What do you think is our like good and bad side?
So I think I mentioned the specific aspect of the hospitality and like how your people are. The concept of inat, I find it very fascinating that you guys do not want to be like dominating, like in spite of everything, you guys want to, like you did this to me, I'm going to get you back over that. And it's not even like a criticism. Well, it is a sort of criticism, but it has nothing to do with the people. It's just like my observation while I was walking in Belgrade, and I always ask people like this specific thing, because I find that there's certain institutions that are very negative for society, and I don't want to call them institutions, but like more like vices. One thing that was kind of like, I was shocked, surprised, and it's just a small criticism of society. Like a lot of gambling spots that I see everywhere, like I saw them in every corner. And when I look at those things, I have friends that, like, you know, went through like gambling addiction. Like it's one of the most powerful ones. We don't think about it because we think about like drugs and all of that, but that plays a really negative aspect. It will definitely play a negative aspect over the years and stuff like that. But it has nothing to do with the character or anything like that. And I think in a way, that concept of inat is like what gets you guys kind of like in trouble sometimes. But it's not a negative thing. It's actually like a good thing because I connected with it in a positive way.
Yeah, but you're right. Sometimes it goes on our, let's say, bill, and we are going worse because of that inat, you know.
Yeah.
Like
we have that too, so that's what I'm saying. Like,
and when you say that, like you're coming from Venezuelan heritage, like what is like? Do you think that on the Balkans are living like mostly the same culturally? The same people like Croats, Bosnians, Macedonians, Serbs, like the same you have also in South America, like Venezuelan, Brazilian, Argentinian, Guatemala people. Yeah. And then we are divided, you know, and then we are like going into war because now there's a hit in South America. I see there's some tensions also going over there, especially in Venezuela.
So, and this is one of the things that, because throughout, after we were colonized by the Spanish and we kicked them out, we suffered like a new form of colonialism, and it was more economic. and United States played a big role in kind of like forming that. So in the last 30 years, there has been kind of like a resurgence of like some sort of like South American nationalism. Like, hey, we should stick together. Like, we're different countries and all of that, but we're the same people. We all speak Spanish. Obviously, there's a few countries in Latin America, like Brazil and all of that. But in a way, we have very similar experiences with the colonial powers that had governed us. Like the situation that's happening right now in Venezuela with the Essequibo area, this is a claim that we've been having for a long time. There's French Guyana and then there's British Guyana. And we claim a part of British Guyana called Essequibo. There's like large
what it's called once again?
Essequibo.
Essequibo.
Yeah, and this is a very sensitive topic for Venezuelans because, like, I remember, like, even in the classroom when I was in Venezuela, like on the map, like it shows like this is ours. The British, when they left, they kind of like left us to be like, all right, you guys deal with it. So we came into an agreement with Guyana where we were like, hey, look, we're going to find a political solution. This has been going on for like 100 years. We're going to find a political solution, but no one's going to exploit this region. But over the last 15 years, Guyana has moved kind of aggressively, like giving concessions to ExxonMobil to go explore, pushing, like politicians are pushing in Guyana, pushing to build an American base there. Venezuela recently, and it goes back to the political corruption sometimes. I don't agree with a lot of things that the Venezuelan government does because I do think that they participate in a lot of corruption. But there's elections next year in Venezuela, and the government is created a referendum, kind of like a question like, hey, should we just take it? Yes or no? The majority of Venezuelans voted for it. But in a way, too, it's kind of like to prepare the political machine for the elections next year, you know, and making politicians decide like what's going to happen and not happen. The tension, like when Donald Trump was in power, like that was the closest that we ever been to like a military aggression to the United States in modern times, because Donald Trump literally said all options are on the table, including militarily. The United States recognize a random guy as president of Venezuela. Like he didn't have no power or anything like that. And a lot of other countries in the region that were allied with the United States supported that. Obviously, the guy did not wield any real power in Venezuela. The government was fully on the hands of Maduro. But one thing that really not shocked me, but I was really like happy about is when the United States was pushing for war, even the governments that were enemies of Venezuela, like that were surrounded, they were like, no. We will never agree to a military invasion of our continent. This country, South America, kind of came into an agreement about 20 years ago saying that like this should be a peace zone. There should be no war here. If we have a situation, we're talking and we're gonna we shouldn't shed blood between each other. Yeah. And conflicts between the nations in Latin America are very rare. They don't at least in the way that kind of like has happened in the Balkans, never. And I couldn't even imagine myself like being called on by my government to go do something in Colombia or something.
But more, just to be like precise, like almost whole South America is under Catholic Church, right?
But look, I'll tell you this: the majority of people, like you ask them, like, "Oh yeah, sure, I'm Catholic." But nobody really cares about that.
Yeah, but
it plays a huge role.
Catholic Church, as you said, is like a political also institution. So for them, there's no one they should push over. Like, and on the Balkans, they have the Croats who are Catholics, and now you have like the Serbs who are Orthodox, and this is like a political, conflict also.
Yeah. So and I'll explain to you this part. So, for example, like Chavez, when he got into power in Venezuela, like democratically elected, he clashed with the Catholic Church because the Catholic Church is a sort of a colonial institution in Venezuela and Latin America, and they unite with the elite classes of our society. So yes. Chavez was a popular leader with the masses and all of that. And Chavez, like, for example, in Venezuela, the Catholic Church is like the leadership of the Catholic Church is part of the Venezuelan opposition. They played a political role. They played a political role in Chavez in 2002. he was deposed by the military. The Catholic Church was one of the ones that signed that we should get rid of him. And when that happened, Chavez directly clashed with the church. He called them out. Like, he literally would call them like devils in God's clothing and stuff like that. There's a lot of nationalist, socialist leaders that have always clashed with the church, because the church participated in like horrible things too in Latin America. When it came to, like, the United States used to support a lot of dictatorships in Latin America, and the church literally played a role in a lot of those things. Not a role directly like torturing people, but a political role in kind of being okay with what was happening, you know, because they're anti-communist and all of these other things, you know. So yes, they do. They wield a lot of power.
Yes, and can you just say your TikTok channel, and how did you put up with the pressure and, let's say, like, satanization of your content? Because I saw a lot of people, like, I don't think maybe it's a lot of people, but there were some really mean comments on your content. Like, how did you manage this?
I'm gonna be honest with you, man. It's not. I don't really care. Like, the comments, they never affect me. One thing that when I started like making the videos is because I knew you gotta have a little thick skin if you're gonna expose yourself. You know what I'm saying? And like, when you're saying the truth, like, I'm not saying anything wrong. So why should I be ashamed? They should be the ones that are ashamed of saying the things that they're saying to me, not me. So I have a peace of mind, man. I literally sleep like a baby every time. Like, it doesn't affect me at all.
Yeah, and I have some Latin friends that came here for, like I told you before, like, came here for a week and now stayed for life. What would be your what would be the thing that would make you stay here in Serbia? You know, maybe for some time or.
I mean, look, I'm very close to my family and all of that, but yeah,
you can transfer them here. We don't mind.
But I will say this, man. Like, when you come with an open mind and an open heart, anything is possible. That's why I always say, like, in a sneaky way, I always tell people, like, oh, how long you going there? I say yearish. Yeah. Because just like, you know what I'm saying? So, like, when you do come with those open things, you know,
you don't have a wife?
I used to be married, but we're not married. I got divorced during the pandemic, and that's one of the things. Like, you know, like, I don't have a family in terms of, like, I don't have children or anything like that. So that's why I say, when you come with an open mind and open heart, things happen, man. So.
Yeah, so Serbian women may know. Just joking around, but basically, and you're currently like doing finance, right?
Yeah. Yes. But, like, you know, it's not even my passion, man. I think sometimes we're put into situations where we're like, we do what we have to do for a living. But I do have a lot of other passions. Like, for example, like, the work that you're doing over here is something that, like, me and some of my friends are attempting to kind of like develop. I believe that, and I mentioned this before we even got into the podcast, I think propaganda plays an important role in society. And propaganda is not necessarily a bad thing, especially when it can be educational and objective. Yeah. So I like work like that. I think like, if we're able to like find some sort of talent in our lives, whether you find it later in life or whether you find it from the beginning, you know, as a kid, you should always pursue it all the way. And I've always been someone that's been kind of impulsive, and like, I follow my heart. And then I think about it, and you know what happens, like, when you kind of like have that kind of mentality, or like you're impulsive, like even this trip was in a way where, like, yeah, I'm gonna do it, boom, let's go. If the heart is, so every time I make these decisions where, like, I'm like, I think this is the right thing, I'm gonna do it, and then I find it that, like, I was right. It just reiterates this spirit more and more and more. Yes. You know what I'm saying? Yes. So, yeah, that's what I do for a living, but it's not.
Do you get any monetization from your TikTok
So
videos?
On YouTube, but my other TikTok channel did have monetization, and I lost all of that completely.
But how much money could you earn from that?
Not enough. It wasn't.
A few hundred bucks.
You need to create other, and you know this. You're in media, and you need to create other avenues of stream revenues and stuff like that, subscriptions and all of that. And that's something that I was developing. I wanted to get to 250,000 followers to start developing other for, because you know, like in TikTok, you can kind of create series, you can create a bunch of different things. There's a million premium content. There's a million things that you can actually do with it. But I wanted to put myself in a position where I wanted to get all my stuff for free. Like I do believe I do have a principle. I do think education should be free. You shouldn't pay for anything like that. And I was gonna find other ways to monetize my information that was not gonna be like, oh, if you have money, you can't have it. If you do, no. I do. My principle always been this: education is free.
Yes, and let's wrap it up easily. Since you say a lot of interesting historical facts, like, can you just like tell one interesting historical fact that people really don't know about? You can say about Serbia or USA, or you can say both. Pick yours.
Oh my God!
Your favorite.
Now you put me on the spot. When you put me on the spot.
No, because I like when you start your videos. Do you know about this lady that you know? And you can now like do this one, like maybe the latest one you find out or something interesting. You know.
I will say this. Damn, it just came to my mind right now because I went to this restaurant over here. I forgot the name of it. One of my friends took me to it. It's like this restaurant that like serves dishes from all these different countries that did not support Kosovo or did not recognize Kosovo. It's in Belgrade.
Korčagin.
Probably, I think it looked like I'm going into like a small, like socialist.
Yes, it's called Pavle Korčagin.
Yeah, I went there and I saw and I saw the different countries and I saw a big.
They're making the dishes from all the countries that didn't recognize Kosovo.
Exactly, and they took me to it, and I saw.
This is my relative, by the way.
Oh no way!
Yeah, from the mother's side, so I know him.
See the coincidence in here, man.
Yeah. He's a really popular guy.
Got you. No, and there's been a lot of coincidence here in Serbia. But like when I was there, I saw like this Cuban flag. I think I will just mention this. Cuba played a huge role in. So Cuba fought a war. Like they sent over 50,000 soldiers into Angola. To support like different liberation movements in there, and the role that happened in there, it's often not talked about, and it's something that even I discovered like 5 years ago. And I saw a documentary of Fidel Castro going into a lot of these countries that he helped out, and how people in there really know the role that he played in there, and it kind of made me. Like people have criticisms of obviously, and I have criticisms too of like the system that Fidel Castro had in there, but it kind of made me proud that like, you know, a Latin American country played a role in helping other countries way outside of their area of influence in a positive way.
Yeah. For the end, let's say where can people follow you, and you can give some last words to the Serbian people and people who follow you.
So on TikTok, Aaron VEN Revel. People can follow me in there. I have and on my TikTok, Aaron VEN Aaron Palacios Rebel, and on YouTube I have Aaron the Rebel Historian 152. That's my YouTube channel. I put mostly shorts in there, and the one thing that I do want to say to Serbian people, I really do appreciate the hospitality. I've been kind of like overwhelmed with like so much love that people have given me, and I just been so surprised with your society, and I wanted to continue to learn from it. And you know, and like you guys, like it's like you have an open door and people just walk through it, and I really appreciate that, man. And all the love to the Serbs, and I wanted to continue to learn more about you guys.
Thank you, Aaron, whatever you, whatever. I hope you will be again our guests. What's the funny thing is, once we did a TikTok live, like you invited me to your channel, we were like speaking maybe 15-20 minutes, and we just went in trending into Serbia like this. So I hope that you will collaborate with more creators from the Serbia. I will also recommend you to some podcasts. So you'll be their guests also. Perfect. Online or offline as you can. And I wish you all the best luck from the Dialogue crew. And I hope to see you not also here, but maybe sometimes when we come into America to check if everything you say is right.
I'm gonna take you. I'll take you to Kensington so you can kind of like see the mystery. But I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, man. Thank you for everything, and you're welcome over there too. And thank you for welcoming with open arms. I really appreciate it, man.
Thank you once again.
Thank you, brother.
Želimo posebno da se zahvalimo našim sponzorima Glina kozmetika, koje obavezno želimo da posetite ako želite kozmetiku sa 0% hemije, znači 100% prirodni preparati za negu tela, lica i svega ostalog. Posebno je njihova odlična pasta od gline za zube, tako da uz dijalog 10 onaj kod možete da poručite kod njih preko sajta svoju prvu ili koju god poručbinu i dobijete 10% popusta. Pored Gline kozmetike, tu je sa nama i Nutri-Smart Višnjićeva 7, Beograd, ceđeni sokovi, zdravi obroci, možete da probate njihove zdrave integralne palačinke, tako da jedno mesto gde možete apsolutno da se osvežite. Evo mi sad pijemo takozvano biblijsko vino, 100% sok od grožđa, tako da topla preporuka da svratite kod njih i probate sve što imaju.